there once again. Great to have you with us for Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. Coming up in just a few minutes, how do you make it to Hollywood when you're from Toledo? There have been a few success stories over the years, more than a few, of course, but we'll introduce you to a stay-at-home mom who is trying to make that happen. But first, I want to share with you a conversation I had with one of the country's leading experts on labor relations. I spoke to Wheaton with Cornell University's Industry and Labor Relations Institute. My initial ask was about politics, and we do cover that. But we start with the Stellantis layoffs announced this past week at Toledo Jeep and the use of the word indefinite in describing them.
It means that they should be concerned about whether they might have to go to a different facility and get transferred to another plant. But they're going from, the report is they're going to go from a 2-shift operation down to a 1-shift operation, and they're going to do some shift swapping where you're sharing it, which is something that they have done previously in Toledo as well, so that they're trying to have a more permanent solution, that the product they have there is not selling anywhere near what they had hoped, and they don't see in the near future the need for 2 shifts. So it's indefinite because it's not just, oh, we'll just slow down the supply for a month or two. It is seen as a longer term issue and problem until they can get a new product identified for that plant.
I'm going to hypothetically give you your medical license for the auto industry. And as a doctor of the auto industry, what is its checkup telling you right now?
Right now, there's a lot of viruses going around, and you don't know which antibiotic is going to help. So that there's a severe problem with not being able to see the future very well, and the election did not help that case at all. One of the things the auto industry really, really wants, and all of their investors want, is a stable environment. What they have is an absolute unstable environment. How are the tariffs going to happen between if they decide to implement large tariffs in Mexico? What's going to happen if there's new policies in terms of electric vehicles? What is there going to be penalties for, not or moving product from one country to another country? And is the transition to electric vehicles actually going to happen in the same way? So you've got a lot of headwinds going on, but some potential good things. So if they do decide to invest more in the United States, and you have a plant with an available 1 or 2 shifts where you could insert new product, that could be good.
Go back to the contract, the strike itself. And obviously there was a lot of talk. It was being sold to the media that this was lock, stock, and barrel, right? This was the best possible bargain that the UAW could get with the big 3, and worker protections were there across the board. Were we sold a bill of goods that just didn't? I mean, was the reporting wrong, or was that the story we were getting? And was there a lot of fine print that workers should have been aware of?
Number one, I think they did get some of the best language they've ever had around it. But you have to always read the fine print or the nuance of the words. And the nuance was you could go out on strike as the UAW over plant closings. I did not hear them announce a plant closing. I heard them eliminating a shift. So that's not the same thing, but 1,200 people could be out of a job for a while, and it could be a long while. But that's not a plant closing. So does that trigger the ability for the UAW to go out on strike for the entire company? The answer is it's not very clear. The language they negotiated has not been tested yet by either a strike or a lawsuit or an arbitration. So it's not exactly clear what the fine print really means. What the UAW interprets it as is not the same as what Stellantis interprets it as. And in business, you always have some escape clause in case of a financial Armageddon or something going out, because you can't really have a contract that forces Stellantis into bankruptcy. So there are always emergency clauses, and it's up to a judge or an arbitrator or a strike to see who's actually right.
Let me ask you this, the line specifically, the Jeep Gladiator, and we're asking people to go out there and put down 50 grand for these larger SUVs, these pickup trucks right now. In kind of the way that we're seeing the layoffs happen, the supply, the demand, is this specific to Jeep, or is this just something that's happening in the industry right now as it is?
It is not specific to Jeep. Jeep is having a bad case. So if you're using your medical analogy, they're more sick than the other automakers, but it is absolutely a problem with the Ford Lightning electric vehicle. They are going on a plant shutdown for a while for their electric vehicles. You've seen delays by a full year for General Motors for their Silverado electric vehicles. You're seeing other delays. So it's not just for the Jeep plant in Toledo. It is part of the problem, and it relates to the economy and it relates to the interest rates. So it's not easy paying for that vehicle. A $50,000 vehicle, if you get a loan and it has a high interest rate, that's not a cheap payment, and other things have gone up as well. So I think that's one of the problems you're seeing.
Let me ask you this, and you know this better than anybody from a labor relations standpoint, and what argument is there for these workers, for Stellantis, on either side, for the UAW for that matter? Do they have a firm argument to fight for these jobs, to sustain them, or is it just the nature of the beast?
They have a legitimate reason to fight for these jobs and to try to keep these jobs and to see if other product that Stellantis makes from its many different brands, what else can we put in there to make this a fully staffed or 3-shift operation, or at least a 2-shift operation. The rule of thumb, and I think it's the Harbor Report that has done a lot of research on this, is you got to have at least 80% utilization of your factory or you're not going to make money. And if you're only running 1 shift when you could run 3, you're nowhere near that profitable mark for that particular plant. But it's also a huge investment. There's a lot of money that they put into that plant, and it may be easier for Stellantis to say, well, let's put an Alfa Romeo product in there. Let's put, a Peugeot product. Let's put something else in there to keep the workers working. And maybe we can use that as an export platform, or we could use it to introduce new product here. Since you've already got a good workforce, you already have a lot of the equipment there, and you have a president-elect that wants to have as many things made in the USA as they can. So there's room on both sides of that argument on whether it's good or bad. But for right now, it's never good just before Christmas to learn that you're going to be out of work, maybe for a while.
Stay with us. When we come back, the voters have spoken. So what does that mean for the auto industry? Welcome back. Leading Edge this week, looking at the election, the change in leadership, and what that means for the auto industry. And we begin chatting with tariffs. Tariffs
are useful if you have a company from another country that is what they call illegally dumping products. So if they're putting an artificially low product that's getting government subsidies and you're not paying good wages, or you're cheating on the environment, then the tariffs can be a useful way of trying to say, no, we need a level playing field here. I don't know that it works that way if you're going to try to have large scale tariffs across many different products, or all products as one of the proposals. That will trigger a reaction from the other country saying, oh, we're going to raise our tariffs as well. So you get a tariff war. The other rationale for trying to at least threaten the tariffs is so he can renegotiate the USMCA, the NAFTA 2.0 that former President Trump negotiated. So right. That was his update. And I don't know that that has really helped him in terms of saying, yeah, we'll keep all those jobs in the US, because they put a ton of money in Mexico, and he wants to renegotiate that deal because many trade agreements are not seen as good things by the workers. A lot of the unions are not overly fond of any of the trade agreements that have been negotiated. They don't feel they ever go far enough. And I think President-elect Trump is trying to use the tariffs as a tactic to renegotiate some of those trade deals.
Ask you specific to some of the results that we got last night and at our local union hall, UAW Local 12 here. A lot of saddened faces when Bernie Moreno upset Senator Sherrod Brown. They believed that Sherrod Brown was I guess, a walking billboard for union jobs and really had their back. What have you seen in history when the UAW loses in an election like this? And is it a wait and see kind of thing, or is it just guaranteed that union's going to have the Democrat back and vice versa?
It isn't universally always the Democrat. It is more often than not the Democrat Party that has that. But there have been Republicans that have tried to do things that were good for the auto industry. And I think you could go to Mitt Romney and his father were not seen as enemies of the auto industry, even though they were Republican. And there have been other Republicans as well. But Sherrod Brown has definitely been a supporter for the auto industry. And I think there's also some hurting for Biden and Harris were seen as also better for the auto industry from the UAW leadership perspective.
Right. And why do you think that is? Because obviously there's been, the scuttlebutt has been the implementation of e-vehicles, right? And whether or not that was going to fly. And like you opened up by saying the Silverado's not moving, the Lightning's not moving. That's product. That is spent dollars not being recouped from the buying public.
But you also have to remember the auto industry is global. So if you want to sell any of these products in Europe or you're selling them in China or other places that have some sort of EV mandate or percentage, you need to be investing in it. And one of the things they talked about during the election, which was not true, is we do not have and never had an EV mandate in the US for a federal policy. So there is no EV mandate, but that was one of the talking points that was happening. But it's always difficult. You have to try to plan for the future. So if you're trying to say, yeah, we're going to make sure every car has an 8-track player in it, they don't even put CD players in them anymore. You got to go with the technology. So you have to, electric vehicles are likely to be a very important part of car sales for the next 20 or 30 years, but it's not going to be exclusive. So whether it's the Democrat or Republican, you have to be able to sell your product globally. And Stellantis is a very global company, and they're going to need the product in Europe. They're going to need to have the ability to sell them. And it would be good if you could have Jeep products sold in other parts of the world as well, so that you can keep the jobs humming. And if it's electric vehicles or if it's diesel or if it's gas or if it's a hybrid, and whatever it takes, people want to buy what's best for their lifestyle or their ability to afford.
I'm not going to ask you to bring out a crystal ball for the fourth quarter, the first quarter, or the second quarter of 2025, but let me ask you this. What is it going to take, not only from Washington, but from UAW leaders and from companies to get the industry back on the right track, in your view?
In my view, you need to have the general public feel comfortable and confident and say, yeah, I can dump 50 or 60 grand on this vehicle. I think my job's going to be safe. I think the interest rate's going to be affordable, and I'm willing to do that for my family. Otherwise, people will say, you know what? My 2014 vehicle is still running. I don't have to run out and buy a new car. I think I'll just hold off, drive what I have. And you're seeing the average age or the fleet average of age is also creeping up as well, because people really can't dump $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on a vehicle if you don't know what the interest rates are going to be, if you don't know what your job's going to be or what the pay is going to be. It's really hard. So I think that's one of the problems you're seeing, is that people are having an impact on the rising interest rates or the cost of the vehicles or the cost of gasoline having an impact. As gasoline has been coming down, the desirability of the electric vehicle goes down. So if gas prices go up to $5 or $6 a gallon, then all of a sudden electric vehicles sound pretty good. So it's also part of that. You've seen gas prices drop significantly over the last year, and that has had an impact on sales.
Always great perspective from Art Wheaton. When we return, a Toledoan's dream of making it big. Welcome back here on Leading Edge. For decades, Toledo, Northwest Ohio has done what it can to bolster the arts. It's been easy. It's been an easy sell because there's a great talent pool. And occasionally there's an individual who breaks through and makes it big. Our next guest is hoping that that could be her. Sydney Trouble joining us, and great to have you here on Leading Edge. Welcome.
Thank you, Jeff.
You brought interest to this story for us telling your story specifically because of, I guess you can call it a little bit of success the last year or so. Can you not? You hit into a Netflix special, right? Unsolved Mysteries, Season 5, Episode 1. Episode 1, which tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Okay, so I was doing background work and found a casting call for the Cleveland area crime reenactment. And I'm a sucker for murder mysteries and stuff like that.
True crime.
So I sent in my headshot and they called me back.
Now, let's give a little background. Let's fill people in on you. And outside of this fascination with Hollywood and the movies and acting and that kind of stuff, you're a mom of 4.
I am a mom of 4, yes. So I graduated college and had 2 toddlers at home, so I decided to stay home with them. But in the winter, I had a little bit of free time, and it was something I always wanted to do. So I told my husband, I'm gonna go do this thing.
Yeah.
I'll be back, hopefully. No, but I went to New York and signed up, and that was that.
So you used the phrase background.
Mm-hmm.
Explain what that means when you were on a set, specifically what your responsibilities are.
Okay, so background actors just bring the set to life. So you have your principal actors in the forefront talking, but anybody that crosses in front of the camera, that's background. Anybody in the background is background, just to bring the scene to life.
No lines.
No lines.
No lines at this point.
Not at this point.
Is that the ultimate score?
Yeah, we want lines. We want the credit at the end of the movie, and that's what I'm really hoping for with this journey.
So we're looking, this is a culmination of the entire season 5 as far as, Unsolved Mysteries used to be on the networks. Now I guess Netflix has taken it under its wing, but you have 1 episode, and I think this is some of that right there. Tell us what tale you are telling in this.
So it's the story of Kate Brown and Cornell Sledge, 2 friends that met in the park that day. And I'm just taking you through her final moments, basically, when they met at the park. And
there's a moment where you're face down in the water. Explain that.
So that
we don't want to give it all away, but
it
is part of the story.
Like I told you earlier. So face down in the water, that was how Kate was found. She was found face down in the water after being killed. I don't know what I can say on the air. But I had spoken with the director about that and said if that's how she was found, we should probably indicate that in the show. And so they're like, you're for it, let's do it. And I jumped right in, you can say. What
can you tell us about the year ahead? Because I know there are some exciting things that have already happened and may still happen, correct?
Yes, so the year ahead is very exciting. Come March, Daredevil Reborn will be released on Hulu, and I have a background spot on that. And
once again happened in New York?
Yes, that was in New York.
Okay.
Brooklyn, I believe. And then I also was in Superman, that was shot in Cleveland. Another background, me and my car on that one. And a couple of other things. I was just recently in Happy Gilmore too, on set of that.
So all the scuttlebutt that's out there in internet world of whether or not these movies are actually happening, they are actually happening because you've been in the background. What is it going to take for you? I mean, you called this isn't necessarily a job at this point, or is it? Or a career. I guess maybe I should have phrased it that way.
I would say it's more of a part-time career for me. I do it whenever I have the opportunity, whenever I can get the time off, whenever I can find childcare, I get there. If they want me, I am there.
Yeah.
So.
And you've gone, and we're looking right here, you've been a part of a few shoots at the zoo. This was for Madhouse, I believe I read,
Yeah.
for a walleye promo that was being put together. And there's you on the set in Cleveland, correct?
Yes, so funny. Yep, and that's me and my co-star.
So what is it going to take, I guess? Do you want to get to the point, you mentioned in some of your bio talking about Katie Holmes, Adrian Palicki, some of the others, I'll go back as far as Jamie Farr, you know, who have made it big in Hollywood. Is that the ultimate goal?
I would love to see that, but right now I'm taking it step by step. I really love the slow motion of it, just doing it when I can. I am looking for 3 SAG vouchers. I have 1. So once I'm eligible for the union, I think that's even a greater accomplishment, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, and you start getting more calls that would, and more notice.
More money.
Yeah, and more money, obviously, to make it more of a career. Well, hopefully somebody will see you here on Leading Edge and take note. And Sydney, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
It's an interesting story. It's a fantastic story. We'll be back right after this. For a final time this week, we want to say thank you for spending part of your day with us. And as a reminder, if you missed any part of the conversation, you can find Leading Edge on the WTOL 11 YouTube channel, as well as all the time on WTOL 11 Plus. Also, Leading Edge is a podcast on Apple and Spotify. I'm Jeff Smith. We hope to see you next time right here on Leading Edge.